Hello and welcome. Today we are focusing on testing the productive skills, which means that today you will find out more about testing and assessment options for speaking and writing. And to help us do this, I'm joined by Dr. Peter Gu from the School of Linguistics and Applied Language Studies here at Victoria University of Wellington. Okay, so today, Peter, we're talking about another very big topic, about the testing of productive skills, the skills of writing and speaking. So I think we might just focus on speaking to start with, because it's such a big topic. So what is speaking?
Great. For any testing of anything, you have to think about what is that thing you're testing. So actually, it's a very complex skill. It doesn't seem so. But if you think about what exactly it is, somebody's speaking ability, that includes at least these things. First of all, it's your grammar ability in terms of speaking grammatically. And then it's also a matter of whether you're speaking to the right person with the same kind of words and sentences, the choice of words and sentence format and so on. So it's basically a matter of pragmatic knowledge. Who do you speak in, what language, for what purposes, in what contexts. So that's speaking ability as well. When you're speaking to your professor, you speak in one way. When you're speaking to your friends, you speak in another way. So that's part of speaking ability as well. And also, you are talking about the ability of strategically handling a problematic situation. When you suddenly have a problem in speaking, for example, your listener doesn't understand you, what do you do? There's a misunderstanding, what do you do? So that's strategic knowledge in terms of speaking. So speaking is everything. It's very complex.
So it's grammatical knowledge, it's pragmatic knowledge, it's strategic knowledge.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's everything. It's very complex. So given its complexity, how do people go about testing or assessing speaking skills?
There are roughly three kinds of tasks to elicit speaking ability. The most direct way of doing it is the direct kind of speaking elicitation, which basically is one-on-one. It can be, of course, it's basically direct elicitation is somebody speaking directly. Okay. It can be elicited through a one interviewer, one interviewee approach, or it can be one interviewer, two or three interviewees, or even two interviewers, one interviewee. So it's basically direct. Whoever is being tested speaks directly. So that's the direct approach. The indirect approach sounds odd, but it used to be used as well. Indirect being meaning that speaking is not assessed directly through speaking. You're given, for example, a scenario, and then you're given a number of choices and say, okay, this is the scenario. Which of these choices would you say? A, B, C, D. You choose one of them.
So like a discourse completion task.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a very indirect way of eliciting speaking ability. And of course, the third way is semi-direct. It's in between. Like, for example, TOEFL nowadays use TOEFL IBT uses a semi-direct approach in eliciting speaking, because when you're being tested through the internet, so basically what they do is to use a pre-recorded part to elicit your speaking, and then the testee will speak to the computer after hearing the question being asked. So in that case, you're not directly interacting with somebody, you are indirectly interacting with people.
Okay. So I guess that from what you've just described, the semi-direct is testing or assessing fewer of those components of the speaking skill, because you wouldn't be calling so much on pragmatic competency and strategic competency.
Exactly. So what it does is basically to elicit your ability to respond to a pre-recorded message, and you can't really elicit your ability to negotiate meaning. You can't possibly elicit your ability to pragmatically adjust.
Right, okay. So,
to the situation.
So the direct method would be the best possible, and the others would be...
Of course.
Okay, great. So when we're doing the speaking assessments, how do we go about assessing or rating the speaker, grading them, giving them marks?
Right. So that's a major concern for performance assessment, including speaking and writing. So actually for speaking, it's marking is rating is crucial in terms of getting somebody's performance, because with human judgment, there's always a matter of subjectivity. So consistency in rating is always a problem. Sometimes with a coffee, before the coffee and after the coffee, we will give people different scores. It's not really a matter of us intentionally doing it. That's our part of our humanness. Actually, judges are shown to be different before the coffee and after the coffee.
Yes, I'm sure they are. And the strength of the coffee is probably a factor as well. So this is an issue we've touched on when we talked about reliability in another film, about reliability in spoken language, for example. And some of the things we talked about there were about moderation and calibration sessions, having agreed criteria, a shared understanding of the criteria. Are those the sorts of things people should be thinking about?
Oh, sure. Especially for relatively high stakes speaking assessment, one thing you should do to make sure that the judgment is relatively consistent is to have a clear set of criteria. And that clear set of criteria is shared, is interpreted in the same way through training of examiners. And of course, that's one step. Another step that has to be done is to train markers so that with the same kind of with exemplars. So with this kind of performance, everybody involved in marking the same marking the same speaking test will have to interpret the rubrics you already agreed to mark against. Everybody involved will interpret the rubrics exactly the same way.
This is part of the calibration of markers to the criteria.
You use a sample to calibrate everybody's rating of the same thing.
And I suppose, what are your thoughts about recording speaking? So for a test taker taking a spoken test, should it be recorded or should it just be done on the spot?
Ideally, it should be recorded. When I said ideally, it should be recorded simply because it's human judgment. And at the end of it, when the student receives a low score, they'll complain. So with recorded speech, then you can have a third marker.
So I suppose in high stakes assessment like IELTS, for example, recording is very, very important. Maybe less so for a classroom test.
Yes, of course. That said, recording itself, especially video recording, can distort people's ability to speak.
Oh, yeah, well, yes, I hadn't thought about that. So another complication to think about.
Sure.
Yeah, and I guess practicality issues come in as well.
Of course.
about this. Okay, so we've spoken a lot about speaking. So the other productive skill is writing. So just very quickly, what sort of similarities and differences are there between the assessment of writing and speaking?
Sure. Writing is normally given much more time. Given the time, people's performance can be better than, without being given enough time. And then you can plan better, you can monitor your progress, you can even check your writing. Whereas for speaking, it's on the spot, it's spontaneous, and also you're responding to the interviewer's spontaneous questions, and not to mention the interpersonal element. The interviewer pulling a long face versus a smiling interviewer will definitely influence the speaker's performance.
Right. So perhaps in writing there are fewer elements to be assessed, or different elements?
It's different elements.
Different elements.
Yes.
Okay. I think we might leave it there. So once again, we can see that there is a great deal to think about when it comes to testing the productive skills, as we saw with testing receptive skills. So once again, we can only say good luck in preparing those tests. Thank you.